Okay, for people joining this live stream, we are talking about how Wolfram Language applications get to be standalone on the desktop. And we had talked about previously, I think we had unscrambled these options for Wolfram script, right? -NB. Do I have a separate notebook about this someplace?
You work directly from the documentation.
Okay, did I edit it?
You added a tentative-open option.
Okay. So should I go back to that, or what should I do here?
We can open it. I think we mostly finished with that area, though.
Okay, so what was that? What was the thing we were talking about there?
So we were considering changing the UI option to an option that would open the notebook in general to kind of separate the execution part from the opening part. So then we would have -notebook to run or use a notebook, and then -open to actually open the UI.
Yes, okay. So -notebook, I don't understand actually. Why? Okay, Wolfram script -file will run a file, right?
Right.
So why don't we allow it to run a notebook as well?
There could be slightly separate handling for the two. Depending on how you want them to load, you might want to do different script things for a file. For a notebook, you really just want to kind of launch it as is with notebook open. So they end up with slightly different handling underneath.
No, I understand that, but the case, look, the cases that we're looking at here are, okay, so one case is we have Wolfram script -file .nb, and what that should do is run the inputs in this file. Do you agree? What does -file do in terms of the okay, and return the last output? I think that's right.
I think that's possible, Garrett. What's your concern about it?
I'm just trying to think through the process in my head. So it would have to open and check if it's a notebook, and I think that's doable.
Well, you can tell by the extension.
Yeah. You can tell by the extension 100% of the time.
Okay. If the extension's good enough, then that covers it, I think.
Yeah. Okay, runs the inputs in this file. So then the -notebook case isn't real here. Correct?
Right. We can kind of merge that with -file.
Was it in there before?
We had -NB in this version now. It's not documented.
It's not documented, right?
Right.
Okay. So okay, so that's that case. So then the next case is, I think, Wolfram script -open and then a notebook. Now we could even have multiple notebooks here, presumably. Am I making sense?
It could.
Yes.
Is there any other arguments we would want that would conflict with it?
Yeah. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure. I think this would be okay, but I'm not sure if we want to allow multiple ones there. Okay. The next issue, actually just being brought up on our live stream, the answer to the question, how are -code and -function different? The difference between those is -code explicitly runs and returns the result of running the code. So for example, if I run -code, if I run Wolfram script -code 2 + 2, I get back 4. If I say Wolfram script -function, right, I'm going to do a much more complicated thing here. right? And that's primarily useful for when you're inside a file. That's going to create something which takes arguments on the command line, right?
Right.
Now,
So,
an interesting issue is the template file that also might take arguments on the command line. See there, right?
right.
So that's dash file. Okay, runs the inputs. Okay, so now the other case is Wolfram script. So dash function is the code, and then it takes arguments. And then we've got Wolfram script. How does this work? This is dash template, and that's going to be a notebook. We got a bunch of background noise, by the way, here. Okay, so then that's the case of a template notebook. Okay, where basically we're running, that would be the equivalent of document generate. It's the equivalent of run the document generator, right, with those arguments. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, now this case is just open the notebook on the screen, right?
Right.
And then that potentially has things like dash menu theme, blah, 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 to deal with the menus, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Should
So
that
now,
be different for each notebook?
only on platforms where there can be different menus for each notebook.
No,
Well,
I mean like there's no menus or menus. So some notebooks may have menus, some others don't.
Look on a Mac, my friend. There's only one set of menus.
I'm looking on a Windows machine.
I know. So I'm saying I think what we should do there is you can set on a per notebook basis the menus if you really want to. Let's not get into that right now. Let's just have a general menu theme here. Okay.
Okay. What about opening a set of notebooks at specific locations on the screen? You know, like basically like restoring some sort of
that's
organized workspace, like basically whatever you have on the screen right now, right? You have three.
Yeah, I understand. So some of the issues here are how to organize notebooks on the screen. Okay, we've got several issues that we need to be looking at here. Another issue brought up on the live stream, and I was also going to bring it up, is the initialization cells in the notebook. What do you do? In this case, do you run the initialization cells? Now, I mean, that will have, I mean, I suspect that we kind of want a thing that says run init. Which is kind of making it seem less and less likely that we want to have multiple notebooks here. And that if you want to have multiple notebooks, you want to do it by using an actual, by having an actual script that has the notebooks be started up, so to speak. Okay, so the alternative would just be a hash bang Wolfram script thing in which you have actual commands here that say things like notebook open, whatever it is. Does that make sense? Because once you're doing that, you can do anything you want.
Okay.
This is just the El Cheapo way to do that.
So if we want to open and evaluate the entire notebook, what kind of combination of options do we want for that?
I think that's not a common case, I have to tell you. I think if you want to evaluate non-initialization, I mean, why would you want to do that? If you want to do that...
You mean like it would flash up for a few seconds while it's running?
Yeah, it just seems kind of silly. I think you should do that from an actual Wolfram script.
Okay.
Okay, now question on our well, that's an interesting point on our live stream, whether dash file could be omitted as a default. If you say Wolfram script and then just what happens right now if you just say Wolfram script and then some random thing here? Oops.
If it's a file,
does that? What does that do? That's really weird.
So if it doesn't detect an argument, it'll just use the default REPL, so it'll go into the interactive mode. If the first argument is a notebook or a file, then that actually matches the way that scripts are passed. So it has to handle that case as a script interpreter. So it's kind of a shortcut, but we haven't documented it that way.
I'm sorry, what are you talking about? What?
So if you just do Wolfram script and then like a test.wls or something like that, it'll open the script and run it.
Well, why did it not do it in this case here? Why did it not just give me an error?
That's not a script.
Right. It doesn't know what FFF is.
Well, why doesn't it give me an error?
It probably could, but it's just ignoring it. It's ignoring it as garbage input.
Okay. Right. So if I say Wolfram script and then I say ffff.wls, still ignored it.
Right, it doesn't exist.
I see, but I think it should give an error. In both of those cases, I think it should give an error.
I think the original Wolfram.exe had a few arguments, but would start in just kind of interactive mode if you gave it.
Yeah, I don't think we should worry about that.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, Brian on our live stream is pointing out, basically we get ourselves tremendously tangled up if we have more than one file in this interactive mode here. I don't think we should do it. There's a question about dash template and what that really means, and what about an XML template, for example? I think the right thing to do is to look at the file type here. And to allow any kind of template that we can support. .xml, .html, we can support various kinds of template types, .txt, etc. Because we have those, and those will use XML template. And that's an interesting case because what will this do? Yeah, that will then return a piece of XML, which could then be ingested or even served back by a web browser to a web browser. Does that make sense? So in other words, this case, Wolfram script dash template .xml or .html would basically return an HTML file after executing the appropriate pieces inside the HTML template. Make sense?
That makes sense to me, and it sounds useful, but most of the template functions have different options.
What do you mean?
Like a insertion function, combiner function, things like that.
You know what? If you want all those things, write the code.
Okay.
I think that the defaults are just fine. Right. I mean, it's going to do a template apply, but it's got to know does template apply default to the right file type if you give it a file?
I think it's file template apply. Is that right? I can put the ref page on go to file template apply. Yeah, the first one. That's probably the function we want to call. because you give it a file and arguments.
Yeah, but does it know from the type of the file? Does it know what's going on? Doesn't look like it to me.
Well, it just splices it in, right? Like it splices in these the second argument. It doesn't care what it is. It just splices in the stuff, the arguments.
I know, but it needs to know where to splice it. It's got various splicing things. You see what I'm saying? That's not really the right thing. Okay?
That's done with the backticks, right? The backtick.
No, it's not. I know, but that's only for a string. If you're using HTML, it's a different way of indicating where the content goes in. Get what I'm saying?
Okay. Okay.
And if you've got a notebook, it's yet different again. So,
okay, then I'm confused.
Whoever it is on the live stream mentions, and I agree completely, that dash template results.json, dash args, blah blah blah, would be really useful. I mean, you don't even need necessarily the dash args, because this, in fact, in the template file, right? That's the whole point. A template file can have things which just evaluate inside the template file. Do you get what I'm saying? No?
I'm thinking. Sorry. Just, templates are not my forte. So.
Okay, so this is the point. This thing here, angle bracket expo. See? That's what's super cool. You could have something there in the JSON file that has, for example, angle bracket star, now plus, I don't know, sunset, open close, right? And that will then turn into, well, actually, I don't know what the heck that would do in JSON, but let's not worry about that. We could do an export string to JSON or whatever it needs to do there, and it will just insert that into the JSON file. So you could say, time : whatever, and it will just work. That's super useful.
Yeah.
Get it?
Yeah. I was confused about the file template apply. I thought the file template apply took a file, but it generates a file, so that's completely different.
Fine. Oh, yeah, I see. Right. It's the way of doing. Okay.
There is no function that looks like that. Takes a file and spits out a file.
Right. So here we have to look at the type and then decide what type of template to apply. And again, if you don't like those heuristics, then use an explicit hashbang hashbang thing. Okay. So you have given, okay, so this dash UI is now gone. It's been replaced by dash open, right?
Right.
Okay. And then okay, and run init is whether to run the initialization files, rather to run the initialization cells. Obviously, okay, so then I think it will be super useful to have, I agree with you that window size is a useful thing to have. And I think we should have, so like we'd have dash window size, and then I think we should have window size full that just fills as a full screen. Because again, I think that's going to be useful.
I think window size takes, we have it as an option already, so we should just support, the full.
How could we have a window size as an option?
Not for Wolfram script, but in the language.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, of course we do. But although I think window size is an option, yeah, it has this full notion. Fine. I don't know whether you can do the two cases, the width and height. I would. I mean, unfortunately, we also have to know where the window is placed on the screen, and that may be. Honestly, I think the full screen case is useful. The other case, this case, I am dubious about, because I think we don't even know the screen size. I mean, we can provide this, but I don't think it's going to be that useful. Make sense?
Okay.
Okay, so the thing I want to talk about is in the hashbang Wolfram script case, how do you get all of these things to happen? Okay. So script file case. Script file. So what we would have is it would begin hashbang Wolfram script. Okay. And then among the things you might do, you could say notebook open, and then the name of your notebook. There's a problem here. Wait a minute. What if you want to give, you know what, we've got a case we're not dealing with here. What if the notebook content is on standard in? See what I'm saying?
Right.
What happens with the file case when it's on standard in? Do you say Wolfram script dash and then it reads from standard in?
I believe that works.
Okay, we should check that. Okay, so Wolfram script dash and then less than std in. And so what is that going to do then? That's going to be the equivalent of a hashbang Wolfram script. Is that right?
Right.
Okay, so a case that we're not dealing with there is what if you read a notebook on, I mean, maybe that's too exotic. You read a notebook on standard in. I'm just worrying about pipeline type stuff where, you know, a notebook comes from somewhere and then you're trying to process it somehow.
Right. There's the case where we'd have to kind of read the first few lines and have some heuristic to check if it's a notebook.
I don't know about that. Well, I mean, we've got the file format function, which tries to answer that question.
Right.
Okay, let's just look here. 4 menu themes are supported: minimal, notebook, manipulate, and palette. Okay, those sound good to me. Why do we have that list here? Menu theme, there we go. So that you're saying, well, they're a little bit weird. I mean,
there are screenshots below to kind of see what they look like, would look like.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, yeah. So that's the normal one. The menu theme notebook, that's just with the menus, right? Minimal is just the same thing, but without the notebook. So that matters on Windows, may not matter as much on Mac. But
wait. This has all kinds of crud in its menus, right? I mean, most of those menus are irrelevant for most people. Well, maybe that's the minimal. No, I don't. That's not what I meant by minimal. I mean, hold on. Theme
just
manipulate.
Keep going for a second. The manipulate is just a much tighter wrapped thing around a control.
Okay, but this isn't a menu theme thing. This is a
right. We it should be called theme or something something different. That was, I think we covered it last time. Menu theme is not the right thing, but
okay. There's 2 different issues here. Okay, so let's write down these options. Okay, so
it's a collection of front end and notebook settings that affect the appearance.
Yeah, right. So appearance options, basically. Okay, so what are they? So there is. Let's just write down all of them. Okay. Okay, so one of them is window size. Okay, which can be width. Well, I think it can be full. It can probably be width and height, or WH.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot, of course, right? I mean, it's whatever options of dollar front end gives you. I mean, that's everything like that is.
What are you talking about?
Well, for Wolfram script, right? There may be a few, like a handful.
I know. I'm talking about what we're going to provide on the command line here.
Right. Okay.
What you can provide elsewhere is a whole different story, right?
We may want to point to some sort of.
Yeah, it's a different thing. Okay, so now dash theme. Okay, so this is overall menu appearance, overall window / notebook appearance. Okay, then I think we need a thing called dash menus. And then we need a dash run init to run initialization. Okay, so theme, I don't disagree with what you're proposing here. I don't know what minimal, I don't understand the difference except for Windows. What's the difference between minimal and non-minimal?
The menu bar.
Okay, but that's only relevant for Windows.
And Linux, I think, as well. Linux 2 out of 3.
Okay, but that has no menus at all, is what you're telling me.
Right.
Is that correct?
Right. Minimal is just like, you're presented with
then I think that what we want to do then is to have that be one of the options for menus is none, right? And don't have that be the notebook appearance. That's just a menu option.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay.
So that's a window element, so we can just change that for each.
Sorry, what's that mean?
So,
yeah. Right. But I mean, so that means that the menus in the we're giving an option for menus, and on Mac that will be the centralized menus. On the other platforms, it will be the per window menus.
Right.
Right.
So, okay, I have to look into getting rid of the menus on Mac.
It may not be possible. It may not be possible. It may just give an error in that case or something, or it may do something different. Okay. So, okay. So I think that means none if possible. Okay. Okay. So full is standard menus, all standard menus. Okay. Standard menus for Wolfram Desktop. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, now we've got other menu configurations. For example, Wolfram Programming Lab. Oh my gosh. Okay, it has its own menus, right? So if you look at its menus, right, you see that they are simpler. Let's take a screenshot of those menus. Okay.
Yeah, that's in the menu setup.tr file.
Indeed it is.
Right, then you need to launch it with a custom user-based directory, basically, at that point. Which
I don't know how you're implementing it, okay? The question of how you pick up the menu setup.tr, I don't know, okay? We talked to John Fultz about this. I think we agreed we're not going to have an arbitrary menu setup.tr. We're going to have a limited set of menu configurations which are bank switchable between. Am I making sense?
Yeah, but it needs... Okay, it needs to live somewhere in your, it's a file. I mean, it's reading from a file, so the file has to be generated and it has to live somewhere, and you need to point to it. So I'm just saying that
exactly
all of that
right.
needs to happen.
All of those things need to happen. Yep, all of those things need to happen. Okay, back to this. So now, this is the Wolfram Desktop ones. Oops! Oh my gosh! Did I get a pasting bug again? Oh my gosh! That was I did a screen capture and didn't paste properly, and it's beeping again. That is the bug. That is that crazy bug. Do you know what I'm talking about, Arnaud?
Not sure that I do.
Well, this is a bug that I've reported for like a year. That is an intermittent bug that affects pasting of images.
Is this Zoom related, or is this?
No, it has nothing to do with Zoom. And if I make a new window here, it'll paste just fine. If I go back to my original window, it'll paste just fine now. Okay? And previously it beeped saying the key combination didn't do anything, which is kind of stupid. Okay, in any case, all right. So you see there are different menus in these two cases, right? So did we have a list of potential menu themes from before?
No, just
thought we
normal
did.
and minimal.
I think I took the current list is from the original list.
Okay, but you confused that, if I might say so, because you turned those into complete themes, right? Which they were not.
Right.
Okay, so that's just it's just not correct. So yeah, this isn't right. So here, I would say, so we're going to actually have to write down what's in each of those menu cases. So I think let's write them down. Okay, so the first case is full. I would say full Wolfram desktop. Oh, actually, we've got another case here. The first case we have is inherited, which is, whatever which is the default. Am I making sense? Which is whatever your desktop Wolfram Language application is, default is. Do you get what I'm saying?
Is that the same as automatic?
Better to be automatic, yeah. Or inherited. I don't know which one is better. Okay, so that gets it from there. Okay, so none is no visible menus. I don't think that's possible on Mac.
Well, you can give a menu setup.tr that's almost empty. You probably still have the Apple menu and still the Wolfram desktop thing, because those you can.
Yeah, okay.
But the rest is probably like that can be emptied
no
out.
visible menus, except Apple plus
application
product app name.
Yeah, whatever your product, whatever product your Wolfram script is pointed to.
Right, exactly. Okay, so full Wolfram desktop menus, I would say, is that case, right?
Yeah, or Mathematica or whatever.
Well, it's the same. They're the same, aren't they? Those menus are the same, I believe. Should we see if we can get Lou here? He would know.
Yeah, I think that would be useful, yeah.
Okay, let me try to get him.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Andre knows a lot about these customizations of, product customization with menus, but
Alex is getting Lou. And yeah, Andre would be useful as well. Okay, Brian on our live stream is asking for a window position option.
Well, you had one up there, but he wanted to have a comma in there. Not sure why, but he wanted to.
No, I did not have a window position. I had a window size, but not a window position.
Oops, sorry. Okay, yeah.
The problem with window position, we don't have a window position option in the front end. We have a window margins option.
Right.
And I don't know what window position is supposed to mean. That is it, what's the coordinate system?
I think it's like wherever your Apple menu is, that's 0, 0.
Okay, well, if we do that, we probably should have a window position option in the front end as well.
Yeah, well.
I don't disagree that this is useful. But the problem is you have to think about what it does. What if your screen is small, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, we're going to come back in a second to the menus, but the other case that I want to understand is
Lou is here.
Okay. can we get everything we need? Okay. Well, all right. What is command line deploy, and what is the relevance of this to any of this stuff?
So command line deploy basically takes some content and creates the appropriate, WLS file that you can run. So it can be, can be a notebook, and then, it'll open that notebook. It can be a cell. It can be a manipulate. I mean,
so it's the inverse of what we're doing here.
It's basically the Wolfram language, wrapper around something that creates a Wolfram language script.
No, I understand, but it's the inverse of what we're doing here. So what this is going to do is command line deploy of image of cat.
Like it would open,
Yeah, so in other words, when you go to that file, if you look inside it, it'll say #bang Wolfram script. And if you run that file, it will make a picture of a cat.
It will show the cat, yeah. I mean, cat is kind of like, parenthetical here. I mean, you would have to have
I know there's no actual cat there.
Yeah.
There's no. There's
right. It would just basically use the Wolfram desktop as an image viewer. So it just open a notebook that's tightly wrapped around the image of a cat. That's
right.
That's what I imagine it would do.
Right. Okay. So let's take the example here. So this is really pretty cool. I mean, this is then take the example of the manipulate. Then that is going to basically do all the plumbing to give you a file, which when you run it on the desktop, will just bring up that manipulate.
Yeah, pretty much with the right menu, like a minimal menu probably, and just something that kind of looks almost like an application where you just
well, exactly, yeah, right.
Your interface is just the sliders and things like that, and
well, exactly, yeah, right, exactly. So what it's going to do is it's going to come up with it's going to be the analog of
no distractions of menus, no.
I understand, but it's the analog here of menus - none. Okay. Okay, Brian on our live stream is asking, will the generated .wls file contain a standard MIME file type like the .nb file?
Well, that's more done with the operating system as far as I know. I'm not sure how you put MIME types.
Well, no, the issue that they're pointing out, which is an important issue, is if what you deploy there is a notebook, right? What does the actual wait a second, what does this actually look like, right? So in other words, let's say, okay, so we've got command line deploy.
Can I say one thing with regards to the WLS file? When you run the installer, whether it's a Wolfram desktop installer or a Mathematic installer or the Wolfram script installer, it sets the the type of the file in the operating system. So it it makes it an executable thing. Beyond that, MIME types are not typically stored inside the file.
Yeah. I understand. But so let's look at this case, okay? Let's look at the case where I'm making this notebook, okay? Where I'm making a complete notebook into the script, right? So, okay, what does the script look like in that case? The script is going to say, actually, the script's just fine. The script is just going to basically say this.
The script would open that notebook, yeah. It will be a tiny little script that basically opens, takes
but the notebook, no, but the notebook is inside the script. There's no secondary.
Right.
Sure, yeah. It's notebook open off that thing.
No, notebook put.
Or notebook put, or whatever.
Yeah. It'll have to store the content inside of it.
Yeah, that's the point. That's the point I'm making. This is a one file, one stop.
It'll be #bang Wolfram script. Next line is notebook put of that notebook expression.
Of the notebook expression.
Yeah, and then it just opens the notebook.
Okay.
And maybe with like minimal theming, if I mean we can discuss that, but
this is super useful stuff in my view. Okay, so then that turns into, you're saying, #bang Wolfram script.
New line, notebook put of notebook of XXXXXX. And that can be, 5 gigabytes long as far as we're concerned. Doesn't matter.
Does Wolfram script automatically do things like using front end if it needs to?
Well, it should. If it doesn't, then we'll put whatever. Right.
Well, but this, in fact, this hash bang line can have options on it if it wants to.
Well, my question was more: does the using front end have to be part of the script file?
It could be necessary, but if it's necessary, then we just add it, right?
Right.
It'll have to be the expression, whatever is necessary to get it, to start up.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about just making it easy to, have a command line script, because the WLS is just, that's an executable thing now. So that's really useful. So, when you type that, it can do all sorts of useful things, such as, putting up an image or putting up a notebook or, evaluating 1+1 or, running some API function. I mean, that's the idea.
It's wonderful. Right. This is super useful. I mean, this people have been asking for this for like
years. Oh, decades. Okay. Even worse.
Right. Okay. Okay. Let's see. What about deploying it as an app for distribution? Okay, so that is a different issue. So the issue is that then you have to put the Wolfram engine inside it. And that is the final thing. That's the final icing on the cake, right? Is final icing is deploy a .wsls file, then bundled with an installable Wolfram engine, right?
Right. So originally you suggested like an include engine type of option. Might have added a different name than that, but the idea was for it to kind of copy over the engine into the layout. The tricky part is how do you secure that so that the licensing is reasonable, and how do you make it so someone can't just switch whatever script out they want into it?
Sure. Well, I mean that's okay. So look, the yes, Ethan on our live stream says packaging Wolfram engine into an Xcode project may involve complicated licensing questions. Indeed, it does for everybody, Xcode and us and everybody. It's a big mess. Yeah. So. Right. I mean, that's the point. Is what we want is a Wolfram engine that is sufficiently tightly wrapped with this, with a digital signature, which, by the way, that's not very hard to put in, right? You have a digital signature that says this engine can only run. I think
like the free Wolfram engine that we're working on. I mean, that would be good for that.
Yes, right. Can only run with this file.
Right. So I looked at doing it with Wolfram engine itself, and the problem is if you distribute this out or make several different applications, then someone would have to activate each of those engines. That doesn't fit very well with their current licensing. So having some kind of signature, I think, would work better, but we'd have to.
Yeah, right. But I think that's something for the crypto folk. Why don't you ask? I mean, that's a good Roman and Daria and those guys who are working on crypto stuff.
Okay.
Because I think that's an application of their. That should be an application of their digital signature stuff. So Brian on our live stream is helpfully saying, sign the script and put the signature at the end and have the engine validate the script before running it. Yes, I agree. But we now have the very beautiful capability that has this all nicely packaged. It says hopefully generate digital signature of hello. What is it asking me for? It's asking me for my public key. Generate asymmetric key pair. And now it's asking me for that. I was actually asking me for that private key, I think. I'm not mistaken. Oh, for goodness sake, it's got to be a frigging elliptic curve key. Yes. There we go. There it is. Yes, and Brian on our live stream is saying create a portal where app developers can submit their app for signing. Yep, exactly so. Right.
Then there's one more trick with that. So without actually installing the engine, if you just have it bundled in the app, then the WLS file won't know where the engine is or where a Wolfram script is. So unless there's like we launch it from an executable or something like that, it's hard to set everything up.
All right. We have to cross this bridge later. Let's get everything else working, and unless this is going to affect the way the command line deploy function works, which I don't think it is.
Great.
I mean, command line deploy is the direct analog. I mean, we designed this a couple of years ago. It's the direct analog of cloud deploy, basically. It can take all kinds of random junk and basically turn it into a standalone script, right? And that script will be referring to the default Wolfram script, correct? So in fact, command line deploy needs an option, now that I think about it, which is Wolfram script location or something, or Wolfram script path, something like that.
That's you're typing on the command line. You type script.wls, so that's going to launch whatever Wolfram script is being used for that.
No, I understand that, but script.wls will contain hashbang Wolfram script. It doesn't know to say hashbang/user/local/Wolfram script.
I'm not sure how that works on Windows though, because I think on Windows there's one Wolfram script that's registered.
Okay, fine. But on any Unix-based system, you can say, something like in that, you could say there,
Yeah. Okay.
Now I don't know how that's going to work in terms of distributing the thing. Okay, this is a complicated thing, but we have to think about,
Well, there's a simpler sub-project, which is just, the command line deploy without all the...
Yes, and that's a very important project. Yeah. Okay, I mean, some of this is very straightforward, I think. Because this is essentially, the way this should work is it's synthesizing a Wolfram script command line, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Great. There's some tricky parts, like what do you do for a form function? Do you generate the form and keep the copy over the graphics, or do you generate the graphics?
How about you don't worry about that case at the beginning?
Okay.
Because I don't even know what the form should be. I mean, what should the form be? You could have, it could be a form in, I have no idea. I mean, it could be running in Node.js. It could be running in a notebook. It could be running in anything.
We should just set up a new Packlet Garrett. Okay. That's just called command line deploy or whatever. Okay. And we start with the 1+1 case. Okay. And then we'll just add cases as we go along.
Right. I think the form function case is quite complicated.
Yeah, but there's a lot of simple cases in here as well.
There's a lot of cases that are very interesting, like the API function case is very interesting. That case will be very, very nice. And I assume we also want command line deploy of delayed. That's also a useful case. Right?
Yeah. Well, there's a 1+1 case, so I would hope that was already delayed in the sense.
It shouldn't be delayed by default. You should have to put in delay. This should be just like cloud deploy.
Okay.
So in other words, if you say 1+1, it's gonna deploy 2. I
see. Okay. And in this case, it will deploy 1+1, but strip off the delayed.
Exactly. But if you say here deploy now, that will be more interesting.
Yeah, but the file will then contain now.
That's correct. Yeah. That one will be a Wolfram script file that contains now, that runs now. What's that?
No,
so it runs now, so to speak, and returns the result of now.
Yeah.
At that time.
Okay.
Okay. So let's go back here to the menu configurations. Okay. So the thing we wanted Lou here for was in this thing, we are planning to have particular configurations of menu setup.tr for different kinds of deployment, right?
Okay.
Is this making sense to you so far? I mean, this is what you'll do is you'll be able to say Wolfram script -open and then a notebook, but you'll also be able to give there -menus, and that will tell you what menus to bring up when you open that notebook, because this is going to be opening. This is going to be opening the whole, a whole front end, and this is telling it what notebooks to open when it opens. Okay.
I understand.
Actually, there's another thing that we could provide here, which is there a splash screen? Does that a meaningful thing? Dash, what is it called? Launch screen or something? Dash, what would you call that thing? Is it called a splash screen? It's not. Splash screen is from from 1970s style, 1980s style computing.
I know we do have such a screen on our Unix and Windows products, but not on Mac. I don't know if we have that support on Mac anymore.
Okay. Question mark, question mark. So that if we had that, then it would be provided essentially as a bitmap, presumably. That true? Anybody know? Lou, do you know?
As a PNG or some such, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So next, okay, then let's go back here. Where were we? Okay, let's talk about menus. All right. So, okay, wait a minute. Okay, Brian says Windows will use .wls to decide to run the engine. Brian says on Windows, you could create a console window that is running the script command processor that reads the input from the command line, like Microsoft does with the PowerShell window. This is what I get for the fact that my Windows machine has been dead for waiting for its upgrade to Windows 10 to actually have everything be deployed correctly, and I have not been using Windows for a while as a result of that. But Arnaud, do you understand what's being talked about there?
Yeah, I think he's talking about just prompting. So, if you don't give the appropriate arguments and it is expecting certain arguments, it'll just put prompts up. So.
Oh, I see. That's useful. Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea that it can give. Yeah, right. That's the case for up in Wolfram script here. That's the case where you've given dash, where the function here expects args, but you didn't give the args.
Yeah, I can show you. I can send you a screenshot if you.
Right. That's a junior. That's a really good case. That's a really good case. If args aren't given, go ahead on the command line.
It's a really useful case, but it's also a little bit difficult because the place where the function's processed is in the kernel, but the place where the arguments are read in will be in the C side of Wolfram script.
But Garrett, it already knows what arguments it's expecting, right?
Right.
If it doesn't have the arguments it needs, then what you need to do is simply run input in Wolfram Language input. You simply go through and you simply look at the arguments that have been provided. You look at the arguments that it's looking for. You say, oh, there are some missing. Okay, just execute input of blah, blah, blah to get those arguments.
Okay.
Makes sense?
With function, will you always know which arguments it's expecting? I know
yes.
You will can.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because what it does here.
Don't you have to give the signature or something, or
you
whatever?
do have to give the signatures? Yes. Yeah, signature. Well,
so
that's an option. That's a signature. So, and in fact, the signature.
If you give the signature but not the arguments, right?
Oh,
then you know what to do.
Yeah,
right.
It's a dead giveaway.
Okay, great.
I'll send you a screenshot of what it looks like.
Right, but let me also point out another thing, which is just an implementation detail. Those things, what you want to do is hijack the interpreter message stuff to get the right thing to happen. Let me show you. Do you understand what I'm saying, what I mean by that? So what I mean by that is something like this. If the signature said it was supposed to be an integer, right? And you say this, right? It'll say that. Right? If you can pick that up, then you can have a nice command line interaction. Does that make sense?
I see. Yeah, that will be tricky because that's another case where it would have to go back from Wolfram Language to C to reprompt.
Why? It's just all Wolfram Language prompts.
Okay, so the Wolfram Language would issue just a message.
Yeah, what you do is you'd use
Okay.
input. Here's what you do: use input. Okay, that brings up this. Okay, and you'd put in something there, and you'd say, okay. So now, what does that do on a command line? Answer here. If I say input here, and I say prompt, for example, right? Then that's what it does.
Okay, great.
It's real simple. Yeah, it'll just work.
And for the cloud, we won't be able to do that.
Thank you for your modernity, Arnaud. Now, how do I copy this thing out?
I can probably zoom in a little bit, but you can resize it. It's really small right now. You cannot click on it and copy it, or it's not important. I just wanted to show you the PowerShell thing.
Yeah, I can copy this.
I mean, just click on the image.
I did click on the image. I did. I can copy the image too.
Okay. Then you can resize the. Yeah, there you go. Okay. I think that's what the.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly so.
Brian.
Right. Yes. Okay. So this will be really nice. That's a really good mechanism. Thank you for that suggestion. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Where were we? We were going back to talking about the menus, right? So the thing comes up, and there are these different themes, Lou. A notebook theme, let's see, do we have a list of themes here? We didn't have the list of themes. We need themes here. So the themes are, I would say notebook, which is just a standard notebook. We had manipulate, which is just a single manipulate. I would argue that we should have a theme that is cell. That's a single cell. Maybe. Okay, manipulate, you'd suggested a palette theme, okay, which is floating, presumably. So these are all things where you could take a notebook that you are opening on the screen and decide how much. What does it mean when you say manipulate? Is that a shrink wrapped around a manipulate or what?
Yeah, and the other notebooks scroll up just a little bit. They're not very well defined yet, but it's basically like, yeah, you have a control, typically a manipulate, and you just build the notebook with no menus around it as small as you can.
Yeah, but remember, you're thinking about okay.
I also have dialogue listed as an alias for it, so it uses a lot of the dialogue style definitions and things like that.
Lou, are you with us? Can you comment on any of this?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's lots to comment on. One is that manipulates change sizes, so locking down a window size to be tight around a manipulate is
silly.
Losing battle.
Right. Okay.
And manipulate is a cell. I'm not sure how manipulate and cell themes are going to be different. Maybe manipulate is going to be themed in such a way that makes it more interactive looking. Somehow it rings that dinner bell.
Yeah. Okay. So your claim is, if I have a notebook. Okay. So look, let me paint two cases. Okay. Well, what happens if I have a manipulate, and I say something like graphics of disk, and then I say image size arrow W, and then I say W goes from 100 to 800, for example. Okay, fine. So now I go, okay, fine. So now I would say one case is the notebook case. It would look like this. It would have all kinds of empty space down at the bottom.
Well, can the window size automatically update to fit right around the manipulate size?
Lou,
It can try. I'm not sure that that's bug free, but we've been doing that, for instance, for palettes for some time. And
so is it like 80% working?
I think it might be better than that, but I don't think it's bug free.
Well, nothing ever is. So 90%.
If you're going to pin me down, yeah, somewhere around there.
Okay. I mean, you can get the box sizes basically. Like you can look at the cell and then look at the first box that's inside it and get the size of that box or something. Is that how you would do it?
No, there's a window size setting, fit or fit all.
Oh, okay.
That does that automatically.
Okay, so you can just use that and then,
So if I set the window size here, so if I say set options of
notebook
of evaluation notebook.
Notice you have two cells here, and they have cell margins.
Yeah. So what happens if I say window size arrow fit or something here?
Try list fit, comma fit.
With just the word fit like
Yes.
that?
Symbol. Mm-hmm.
Oh, very exciting. Oh my gosh.
But notice the slider is moving out from under your mouse.
Oh yeah, it's horrifying. Yeah, I mean, there are many aspects of this that are horrifying.
But it works.
Yeah, but it does work. My gosh. That's really, in the world of UX, insanities, that's pretty high up there.
So we did develop a manipulate option for demonstrations that will lock down the size of the manipulate in a couple of different ways. One is we allowed users to specify a content size literally for a manipulate.
Yes.
And another was a way to have the dynamic grow but never shrink by setting, I think it's shrinking delay to infinity. We don't use that for manipulate, we use it for animate, but it could be used here.
Okay.
But how common is it that manipulates grow in size? I mean, I would never...
Oh, I would not super common, but it's not unheard of.
You write manipulates that just change in size. I mean, I always make an effort that they don't change in size because it kind of bothers me. So,
well, if you're doing math, for instance, you don't know what the answer is going to be for different values in the parameter space. Expand x plus y to the n. Yeah,
I mean, look, there are some manipulates that change size, and there are many that don't. That's the basic bottom line. Okay.
One on the left is more typical, I think.
Right, which doesn't change size. So fine. So, okay, look, it seems to me that Lou and you guys need to work together to come up with, so with respect to the menus, let me just say what I think we want, roughly. I think we want the full menus. I think we want something that's more like programming lab menus. And I think we want something that's minimal. So I think we should say full. I think we want simplified. And I think we want minimal. And I would assume minimal. I mean, Lou, you can... now, okay, next question. For users to set this up themselves, is it plausible or is it way too complicated to set up the menus themselves?
It's fairly complicated. You need.
Can I read in a menu setup.tr file and see what it looks like?
Sure.
Where is my menu setup.tr file?
It's in a platform-specific sub directory of
Do
text
find
resources.
file maybe? Find file might find it.
No, find file won't find it.
Oh, do text search. Oh, that's not going to work, is it? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I can. Okay, look, I can find it with my big elephant thing here. Well, he says, I don't know whether
The elephant is asleep.
the elephant is not. It's not. No, the elephant was lost. I could probably find it with the Mac Finder.
.tr.
Is that what I want? Menu setup.tr.
I think so. Yeah, there's one. Yeah, that's one.
Okay. That's not that horrifying. Oh, excuse me. That's not that horrifying. I mean, actually, it's quite nice looking.
It's readable.
Yeah. I mean, this is not absolutely insane for users.
We have never suggested that users modify this or any other text resource file themselves.
No, I understand that. But in principle, we could at least have a simplified version.
We could pre-package several choices, sure.
Yeah, like a style sheet,
Exactly. That's what I'm suggesting. And I'm suggesting that we pick ones that are suitable for, look, basically there's the full case, there's the simplified case, which is e.g., education related.
With just a file
material.
save in a file, copy paste maybe, those sort of things.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically,
and not a lot of but if you look at the one for Programming Lab, it's got some stuff in it like under advanced, and this is probably not the right place for it. This some of these things, this type of stuff. Okay,
Stephen, can I point out something?
Yeah.
The menu bar is only one place where menus are available. There are a few others.
You are right. Like the right-click menu.
There's context menus all over the place. One you might not think about is there's a context menu on the dock icon.
I hadn't even thought of that.
Right.
Okay, so look, the basic point is we've got to have these other things. And unfortunately, I have to go. So we have to wrap right now. To be continued. If you guys can meet separately and talk a bit about these menus, that would be really helpful.
Yep, get that scheduled,
Okay.
Carl.
Okay, and you have access to this SW notes file? Do you have that?
Do you show where it is? And
I have access to it.
Okay, there it is.
Okay.
Could you give me a copy of that?
Yes, I'll send it out.
Okay, I have to run. I'm sorry, guys. And thank you very much to folks on the live stream. A lot of very useful comments for us today. Thanks. Okay, see you all soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.